Hello, Dope Books. I'm back with another edition of Old School Boxing Talk. Tried to do this video a couple days ago and got interrupted. Gonna try to get through this quickly today. Um, Usually I go into these things. I have a theme for this, but this one here is gonna be a little bit all over the place. A lot of people say a lot of my videos are all over the place, but hey, whatever. Anyways, I did one earlier about the sanctioning bodies and how wretched they were, and lo and behold, just when I think they can't stoop any lower, well, not, I think they won't. Here comes the WBC, and now, their franchise championship can only be won and lost in unification fights. Just in time to make Lomachenko versus Lopez a fight for undisputed. The WBC changes its rules for the franchise championship again. And it's kind of funny that, that why, why are they allowed to get away with boxing is the only sport, and I love this sport, but the only sport with some bullshit like this can be done with. The WBC created this damn franchise title for Canelo Alvarez because Canelo didn't want to fight Charlo. They created this belt for Canelo because they didn't want Canelo to give the belt to Charlo and walk away like he pouted the last time. A couple years back, when Canelo fought Miguel Cotto for the WBC and lineal middleweight championship, Gennady Golovkin, how the fuck it happened, but any process, I don't know how that happened. For some odd reason, Gennady Golovkin, who was the WBA champion, became Canelo's mandatory. And Canelo at that point didn't want to fight Golovkin. Canelo had, some other things he wanted to do. Canelo being a diva he is, decided, you're not going to tell me who I'm going to fight, when I'm going to fight, which is why the WBA super title hasn't been defended except once since he's won it. Now it's in his fight with Danny Jacobs when he won the IBF title, which once again, when the IBF said you got to fight Devinchenko and Canelo was told what he had to do, Canelo decided to drop the belt. That's a legend for you, Canelo. That's the legendary Canelo Alvarez. I like Canelo. I just don't like the diva bullshit crap that he's been pulling. Some fighters, you expect more from, and Canelo I expected more from, but Canelo's become a big bitch in my opinion as far as picking his fights. Now I'm not, I just don't like the way he conducts business. I don't like guys that conduct business this way. If you have a mandatory fight, you're fucking mandatory. Don't just give up a belt. I mean, and I'm going to use this as an example. On two occasions, Floyd Mayweather was a WBC welterweight champion, and on two occasions, the WBC mandated a fight between Floyd Mayweather. One was against the boy that quit. Jesus Christ, Victor Ortiz. One was against Victor Ortiz, when Ortiz won some version of the WBC title from Andre Berto, and the WBC mandate that Floyd had to fight him and give up the belt. So Floyd beat Victor Ortiz's ass. The next time was against Robert "Ghost" Guerrero, where the WBC said, hey, you got to fight Guerrero because Guerrero beat Berto for some WBC, some piece of belt we had, and blah, blah. And Floyd beat Robert Guerrero. Not once did Floyd ever give up a belt. Say what you will about Floyd. Floyd wasn't giving up no damn belts. Now you turn around with Canelo at 154 and at 160. He seems to, Demetrius Andrade and Jermell Charlo seem to be a problem for Canelo, because in two weight classes, when Andrade was the WBO junior middleweight champion, Canelo didn't want no smoke with him. Charlo was the IBF junior middleweight champion, Canelo didn't want no smoke with him. Of course, at the same token, before Charlo won the IBF title, Charlo was set to fight Andrade, and Andrade, kind of didn't take the fight, and that has left a sour taste in the Charlo brothers' mouth toward Demetrius Andrade. Otherwise, Demetrius Andrade would have, that fight would have been happening, but the Charlo brothers hold that grudge, and it's Demetrius' fault, because, you broke it, you went up, you walked all the way up to Open, signed the contract, and then decided, no, I don't want to fight. After everything, the date was agreed, everything was agreed upon. So maybe all in the to the Charlos, it's like we're not going to go through this again, and you decide someone else come along and make you a little offer to, and you decide to skip out on it. So fuck you. We'll get you when you when you need us. When we're ready to get you, we'll get to you. Um, but back to the WBC. So the WBC creates this franchise title, which nobody in boxing wanted. No, everybody's like, what the fuck now? And it's pretty much was Canelo's get out of Charlo jail free card. It was so Canelo wouldn't have to fight Charlo. They said the damn thing was for champions that jumped up and down in weight class at first. Then they started expanding to trying to franchise other motherfuckers. Now, after people are giving up their belts, Lomachenko, Canelo, giving up their belts to be franchised, and Devin Haney Devin Haney's sitting there with the WBC title. All of a sudden, here's the thing is, the WBC realizes everybody's saying you can't fight for undisputed because WBC, that franchise title's on the line. So you can't be undisputed with that. Well, Bob Arum wants undisputed for these boys. So I don't know how much money Bob gave the WBC. I don't think it took much arm twisting. Probably took a couple bucks for Mauricio to walk in the door and say, hold on, put Bob on hold and sit there and say, hey, you know what, Bob? I got it. We just came up with a new meeting and me and the guys are talking while we had you on hold. And we've decided that if you're the franchise champion and you fight and unification fight for undisputed, then the franchise title can be put on the line. If it's for undisputed, you can win or lose the franchise title. Bob's like, you mean now I got an undisputed fight? Yes. And I don't gotta fuck with your feet. And I don't gotta fuck with Devin Haney? Yes. Thank you, Mauricio. Checks in the mail. Yes. It best be. And here we are discussing WBC. I wasn't crazy about Jose Sulaiman. And I've hated Jose Sulaiman because he made this push. He was one of the major guys that made this push to get rid of 13, 14, and 15. And hey, how's that working out for you? Fighters are still dying. Boxing's a hurt business. Boxing's a sport that you're going to die. Amateur fighters get killed. Taking away 13, 14, 15 wasn't a good look. It fucking cheapened our sport. But what the fuck, Marie? The WBC, WBA, the IBF, they don't give a fuck about the sport of boxing, just the money that they can make off of the sport of boxing. They don't care about the integrity of the sport. And you know what? Unfortunately, neither do some of the people involved in the business of boxing. Because this latest bullshit just goes to show you, how the hell can you do this? You create this fucking phony title for Canelo. First of all these governing bodies need to be examined. You're the WBC. You're a Mexican-based organization. Okay. Okay, Mexican-based organization. And the people that Mauricio Sulaiman, Jose's son, who became president, who they never had an official election. They just said, hey, Mauricio, you're Jose's son. You're not a president of WBC. And every move you've made is to benefit those Mexican fighters that can afford to pay your corrupt ass, namely Canelo. When Canelo wanted nothing to do with the WBC, you were all ass hurt. Now Canelo's back in your good graces, you're all but kissing his ass, and you say you care about the sport. Yet, when Canelo gets caught with albuterol, now you want to change the rules for Canelo's doping. When everything Canelo doesn't want to fight, his number is mandatory. Well, we can't strip him. We make a title for him that he can't lose, so that no matter who Canelo fights, guess what? We get paid. Excuse me. Where does that benefit boxing? Where does that benefit the fighters? And I want to know, maybe somebody to looking at what these governing bodies are doing to see how many Ali acts they violate. I know the WBO in their relationship with Bob Arum violates the Ali Act. On some level. But this is the problem with boxing. You have no oversight. You have nobody looking on the outside, looking in, saying, wait a minute, we have no commissioner. We have nobody sitting there saying, wait a minute, you can't do this shit. No, we're not doing this. You're not doing this. We have nobody looking out for the integrity of the sport of boxing. And then you wonder, why is boxing not a niche sport? Why is boxing not taken as seriously as other sports? Why is MMA taken more seriously than boxing? Because at least with MMA, they have a commission. They have somebody overseeing it. They're not changing the goddamn rules every 15 minutes. There's no. I've never heard Dana White say, "Well, we're gonna, you know what? I don't want to lose Brock Lesnar, so Brock, we're gonna make you the franchise UFC heavyweight champion. You can't lose it, and anytime you come back and fight, you'll be the UFC heavyweight champion." I've never seen it do that to, better with St. Pierre. St. Pierre, hey, we're going to make you the franchise champion. And George St. Pierre, whenever you come back and fight George, you're going to be champion. You can never lose us in a ring, and blah, blah, blah. No. No other sport but boxing does bullshit like this. No other sport. The greatest sport in the world, and this is how the corrupt people involved in it, promoters, managers, sanctioning bodies. And you know who hurts the boxing? The people that hurt boxing the most, who could really do some good for the sport but give no real fucks? The networks. The networks don't give a fuck about boxing. They don't. They were largely behind the push to get rid of 13, 14, and 15. And it wasn't because of fighter safety. No. It was because if we get rid of those 3 rounds, the fights are shorter. And instead of having 2 15-round championship fights, we have 2 12-rounders, and we get done more, because HBO and these other they needed more time on the West Coast, fights were taking too long. That's why they don't give me this bullshit about they got rid of 12, 13, 14, and 15 because they cared about the fighters' health. They don't. They didn't then, they don't now. They did it for their own greedy purposes, what the networks always do. What's in their best interest. And the people that suffer are boxing fans and the fighters. Because there's no one looking out for the fighters or the fans. We're the ones that got to sit there and people say boxing and snicker at you, and we're the ones that got to defend this sport and all the bullshit that goes into it. And assholes like Mauricio Suleiman and I don't know the name of the other 2 jackasses that run it. I mean, the WBO, those jackasses being sued by they're being sued. They're right now being sued by damn, I forgot the boy's name. But they're being sued for $40 million. The WBC was sued before by Racho Graciano when Roy Jones moved up and fought John Ruiz for the WBA heavyweight title. There was talk that possibly Roy Jones had vacated the WBC title. And this kid, Graciano, had won the title. Well, apparently Roy decided he was going to keep his light heavyweight title. And so this kid decided to sue the WBC. And he would have won, and he would have bankrupted the WBC. So the WBC came out with their bullshit, some bullshit way to give this kid a little bit of cash, keep Roy as WBC champion, and get his belt some little claim as a titleist to make him go away. This is what's wrong with the sport of boxing. We have no oversight. What happens inside the ring is beautiful when it's man against man. Inside the ring, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's the shit that goes on outside the ring that just pisses me the hell off. This latest thing with WBC saying now the lightweight championship of the world will be for undisputed, because if you fight for unification, if you fight for the undisputed, the franchise title can be put on the line in that case. Wow. So the wretched WBC gets to collect a bunch of franchise fees, and that's another thing. These franchise fees. What the fuck? You got 20 champions. You got all these people being champion. The WBA, they have their super champion. And he doesn't fight in. Fucking Manny Pacquiao wins the super belt from Keith Thurman. He hasn't fought. He's fought once since he's fought Thurman. I don't know if he's fought since he fought Thurman. Canelo's been a super champion at middleweight. He's defended that damn title one time. What they do is for star fighters. Oh, you're the super champion. So now we have a regular title. You Ugas was going to fight Terrence Crawford, but he got a shot at the regular WBA title. So he said, now we're not going to fight Crawford. We're going to fight for his regular WBA title. So I can have a piece of nothing. This is what disgusts me about the sport of boxing. The sanctioning bodies, the promoters. I already told you in my last video why I don't deal with Ring Magazine, because of corruption there, and I don't deal with ESPN and their ranking, because ESPN and Ring Magazine, ESPN is run by Bob Arum. Everything box related ESPN is run by Bob Arum and Top Rank, and Ring Magazine, everything there is pretty much run by Golden Boy Promotions. So I don't really fucks with either one of those. Neither one of them are viable in my opinion. They're both tainted, extremely tainted. They're both biased, extremely biased toward Top Rank and Golden Boy, which is like I say, I used once a great while that Max on Box. I'll skim through that to see if Kellerman's going to say something that's remotely plausible, but usually all Matt Kellerman does is give lip service to whatever ESPN, whatever Top Rank's agenda is. So, build up Top Rank as having the best fighters, and everybody else is second-tier fighters. Bullshit. If Top Rank was so great, Terrence Crawford would have a whole lot more fighters to fight. We wouldn't be questioning. The big question about Terrence Crawford is, when are you going to fight somebody legitimate in the welterweight division? Just saying. So, God, I want to get that WBC ran off my chest, because that's fucking ridiculous. Now, no, I have nothing wrong with Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez. That's a fight I want to see. That's a great fight, and I have nothing wrong with that. My problem is with the WBC now changing the fucking rules. It's like you'd be like, okay, you go to the NFL, you play a game of football. You're playing a game, and all of a sudden, all of a sudden, we all know that we have 4 downs. You have 4 downs. You got to make 10 yards to make a first down. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, and they're playing in, let's say, in Pittsburgh, and they decide that, because we decided that it's third and it's they say, it's 3rd and 10. And they say, when we're playing in Pittsburgh, they say, you know what? As of right now, if you're at this point of the field, instead of needing 3rd and 10, instead of needing 10 yards for first down, you will only need 5 yards for a first down. Change the damn rules in the middle of the damn game. How do you think the opposing team is going to feel? You don't know how to feel. It would never happen. In the NFL, if it would happen in the NFL, they go ballistics. They would go ballistics. If it happened in baseball where you just take a rule and change the rule, they would go ballistics. But in boxing, it's like, it's par for the course. And that's a shame. That's a shame. That in boxing, when you do this corrupt crap, the fans of boxing, the fighters of boxing, everybody in boxing, okay, whatever. Just go along. Where if in any other sport, if this happened, there would be uproar from the participants and from the fans and from the media. But nobody in the boxing media gives a fuck, because the boxing media is so corrupt, and they're in the pockets of all these promoters and all these sanctioning bodies. They're so corrupt that they don't even want to, a lot of old media boxing, they don't really give a fuck. Because it doesn't affect their favorites. Bob Arum's been around saying like, we'll do whatever for Bob. Bob's been around forever. And because it's good for Bob and good for Bob's business, we're all going to go with it. We're going to let it go. You don't see nobody in the old school media, in old school boxing media saying anything about the WBC's wretched rulings. You don't see too much criticism. And I don't hear too much criticism of this shit at all from anybody. The whole boxing community, whether it be old media, new media, LDBC, ABC, whoever, everybody that calls themselves a boxing fan and that cares about the sport of boxing and it wants to see this sport go where it should be, take its place back to where it should be. If we allow shit like this to happen, and we don't bitch, and we don't moan, and we don't complain, then we're as guilty as the people that do it. Evil triumphs when good men do nothing. And unfortunately, boxing fans, we are allowing evil to triumph because we are doing nothing. We are allowing this. We say, what can we do? Well, hell, we can go sit to our congressman. Say, hey, I'm a boxing fan. I don't like, this is what shit's going on in boxing. Let's see if we get something going here. Talk to other congressmen from other states. Bug your congressman. Say, hey, you guys don't allow this crap here in MMA. Why you allow boxing to do this? Hey, why is this allowed to happen? Hey, since the United States is epicenter of major boxing and most of the major money is made here, why don't we form a goddamn commission to stop this crap, to regulate the sport of professional boxing in the United States? Okay, we can't regulate outside the world, then fine. We can set a regulation and rules in the United States. So when you come here to fight governing bodies, whoever, these are the ways. These are the rules. We're not going to have all that horseshit and bullshit. We're going to hold these governing bodies accountable to their rules, their regulations, come up with a bona fide ranking system, and start calling people out on their BS. This sport is only going to be as good as the people in it and as the help we get to make it great. We're not, we've let this thing go too far. And these governing bodies in the world we live in now, these wretched governing bodies, it's time for them to go. Now, look, I came up with an era of boxing where we had 15-round championship fights and we had 2 world championships, and I hated it then because it was damn near impossible to get undisputed unification. But I would rather have 2 men claiming to be champion than have 4. It was easy to know who the champions were when there were 2 than it is with 4. I did a video earlier where I said this is what I would change if I was the commissioner of boxing, and some of the major rules I would change, things I would change. I think I'm going to revisit that video. I'm going to redo an update to that video. I'm going to do my research. It'll probably be a while before I do it, but I'm going to do my research. And I'm going to, these are things I believe boxing needs, and if I had the power to run boxing, what I would do. It has nothing to do with promoters, because promoters are going to be promoters. I mean, I might G-check a couple of them. But it's mostly has to do with the sanctioning bodies, a lot of this other horse shit that I would get rid of. That can be gotten rid of. To bring the honor and integrity of boxing back. Because without your honor, without your integrity of the sport, the sport's integrity in boxing has been lost. It's just like, oh, it's boxing. Anything goes there. Because there's no real rules. There's no commission. They don't give a fuck. Another point of this was, I wanted to touch on the new senior league started by Mike Tyson and Roy Jones, which is going to have a bunch of old men wearing headgear. It's an updated version of celebrity boxing, in my opinion. And here's the funny part. Canelo Alvarez, you're supposed to be the man in boxing, yet Roy Jones and Mike Tyson, 2 guys, are going to fight an 8-round exhibition in headgear with 16-ounce gloves, have totally just bitch smacked you and pushed you off the date you wanted to fight on. So now you're going to sit there and bow down to them. And then, we don't know, because next up, the next little matchup of this kind could be maybe we get Lennox Lewis says, hey, I'll do this bullshit here. And maybe we get Lennox Lewis and to do one of these little exhibitions and do it on. If this was successful, they'll push you off your date too. Or hey, you know what? Floyd's always looking for publicity. Maybe we'll get Floyd to do something. Maybe Floyd, will come up and Floyd will say, I'll do a little exhibition. I'll do a little 8-round exhibition. He just did one in Japan a couple years ago. Well, Floyd, for X amount of dollars. But the point of the matter is, exhibition boxing is now pushing real boxing off of their dates. Think about that. That's sad. That's sad. When Mike Tyson is 50 some years old and Roy Jones at 50 some years old is pushing Canelo Alvarez off of the date he wanted to fight because they're going to pay per view and they decide to do that. And the arenas and MGM Grand in Vegas is saying yes, yes. But Canelo's the money man, so we've been told. It tells you about the economics of boxing. I would guarantee, I would be all but willing to guarantee you, if we weren't in the states we were in with this pandemic, and Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury were going to have their third fight, I would guarantee you there would be no way in hell anybody would push that fight off his date for an exhibition between Mike Tyson and Roy Jones. They'll tell you, take that bullshit out in the backyard. We'll get to you. This is for the heavyweight championship. You don't mess with this. You're not messing with this here. But Canelo, this shows you how much respect the American boxing media and this has for you, that you haven't even earned that kind of respect. The two old men wearing headgear are pushing you off your date, just shoving you right the fuck up out of there. Two old men wearing headgear, 16-ounce gloves. Just to make it clear there, who's beating you? Two old men who can't go for the knockout, who have to box the whole 8 rounds of an exhibition with headgear and 16-ounce gloves, have bitched Canelo Alvarez and pushed you off of your date in Vegas. And you know why they've been able to do that? I'm going to tell you why they've been able to do that. Because Charlo is fighting Devinchenko instead of you fighting Charlo. Charlo's fighting Devinchenko. Boo Boo was sitting there with no dance partner, Canelo. I would be more than willing to, if you were putting Boo Boo in there instead of whatever the hell you're doing. If you'd have said, I'm fighting Boo Boo Andrade for the unifying this middleweight title, me and Boo Boo are fighting, I think that might make Mike and Roy push their fight into another date. Or give pause for there be, they would, Vegas would be like, yeah, we gotta, they would talk to Mike and Roy, so you guys gotta go a week later, or, we gotta push you down the ladder a little bit. But because Canelo's fighting nobody, and Tyson and Roy Jones have a big fan base, and they're bound to bring people, Vegas is like, hell yeah, fuck Canelo. And that's a shame, but you're the money man, Canelo. What's also bad is that here is your promoter, Oscar De La Hoya, who should be honestly fighting in that little senior league with Roy Jones and them. He should be in that little senior fucking league with the headgear and the 16-ounce gloves, pushing you off your date. But Oscar decided, I don't want to do the senior thing, even though I'm old enough and eligible. I want to fight the real boys. And Oscar has come out and said, if I come back, I'm going to fight the Charlos. Wow. Now, one, I hope Oscar doesn't come back, because Oscar is a great fighter. He's got nothing to prove to me or anybody else. Oscar De La Hoya, I put him in the same category as I put Floyd Mayweather. As people, I think they're shitty people. But as fighters, nothing but the uttermost respect what they did in that ring. And I don't want to see Oscar come back, because I have a lot of respect for Oscar. I don't want to see Oscar come back. I don't want to see him fight Charlo. If Oscar wants to come back and fight some little Hammenager, because he went out on a loss, he didn't like going out on a loss. Wants to come back, go out on a win, he'll come back at, what is he, 44, between 44 and 45, and he fights some little Hammenager and proves he can beat some little Hammenager, some CD level fighter at that age. Hey, great, Oscar, great. Go ahead, have your fun, have your one more lap around, get yourself in the best shape possible, go out there and have yourself one nice little, last tour of duty. Yay. And no one's going to judge you for that, because what the hell? When you were at your best, you fought the best. So no one's going to judge you for that. You ducked no one. No one. And I will give Oscar De La Hoya credit. He ducked no one. Oscar wanted all the smoke. And he didn't win them all, but he won. He won his fair share. but he ducked no one. And that's what great fighters do. Great fighters duck no one. Great fighters want all the smoke. And today's fighters, I haven't seen, my man Gary Russell Jr. I talked about in my last video. Well, apparently Gary Russell is somebody. Gary Russell needs to get the fuck away. This is why when you people start talking about how great the PBC is a guy like Gary Russell, I can tell you how fucked up the PBC is. This guy is one of the most talented fighters ever. Got off to a slow start. Yes, he did. But stepped up his game, and Gary Russell Jr. can fight. This brother's looking for a fight. You got Gary Russell and Leo Santa Cruz are the best guys at featherweight. And for some odd reason, PBC could not find a way to make that fight happen. Excuse me. Now you got nobody at 126 that wants to fuck with Gary. Shakur Stevenson was just there had a cup of tea, won a belt, and he jumped the fuck up out of it because there was nobody there to fight. So you got Gary Russell, and they said, well, Gary's only fighting once a year. Well, there's no fucking body for Gary to fight. Give the man a fight. The man's sitting there saying, so now he's getting some beef with Mikey Garcia and with Terrence Crawford. And the man is saying, I will come up to 147 to fight either one of you. Oh, come up. No catch weight. Gary's like, no catch weight. I'll come to 147. I'll see you at 147. I will see you at 147 to both Terrence Crawford and Mikey Garcia. Okay, first of all, let's get with Mikey. Mikey's a businessman. Mikey's a businessman. Mikey is only going to fight the fighters that Mikey feels are going to make him the most money and enhance his stature. And if you're going to beat Mikey's ass, you're going to pay Mikey a whole hell of a lot. I'm not going to get his ass beat. So Mikey, I can see why Mikey and Gary Russell didn't fight was pretty much, I think, Mikey saying he didn't want to fight. Because I don't like, I seen when Mikey fought when Mikey fought, can't think of his name. Damn. The boy that beat Lomachenko's ass. Damn. Anyway, Mikey fought him. Mikey bitched his way out of that fight because he said he broke his nose. And they gave Mikey the belt. They let because Mikey was ahead on the cards. There was a little headbutt. Mikey's nose swelled up. Instead of being a fight, just fighting through it, Mikey cried. And they called it went to the cards because Mikey couldn't continue. They went to the cards and Mikey was Salido. Mikey Garcia when he fought Salido. Bitched his way out of that fight. A little headbutt, he got a bruised nose, whatever. That shit that happens in boxing. And Mikey bitched his way out and bitched his way to a title. Cried his way to a belt. The same belt that Salido took from Wama, by the way. But, I digress. You have, Mikey don't want to fight nobody. Mikey's never want to fight nobody. Mikey could have fought Lomachenko. When they were both at 135, he didn't. Mikey could, there were a lot of guys Mikey could have fought. He didn't fight. Mikey chose the path of least resistance, except for at 147, where at welterweight he had to go to Earl because Earl was, Earl. He went to Earl. He figured, okay, if I beat Earl, it's high risk, high reward. It's high risk, high risk, high reward. If I beat Earl, great. I jumped up and beat what people say the best welterweight in the world. If I lose to Earl, I don't lose much because I lost to the best welterweight in the world. But Mikey don't want no smoke with nobody for real. Mikey don't want no smoke. And then, Terrence Crawford. I like Terrence Crawford, but when the champion of 126 pounds is calling you out, and you don't have Bob Arum FedEx and him a contract, not now, but right now, Terrence, I'm kind of, first you didn't want to fight Sean because you said, oh, me and Sean Porter are friends and blah, blah. But motherfucker, people are friends at fighting the amateurs. Don't give me that friends bullshit to stop a fight. Friends, people are friends, and the amateurs might be in the same weight class and have to fight maybe twice during a tournament. And I've heard stories, and I've known guys that fought in the same weight class that were the best of friends, went to school together, lived in the same projects together, were in the same weight class, got to nationals, and had to fight each other twice. So don't give me that bullshit about, oh, we're friends, we can't fight. If you're friends and you make money, you want to make that fight happen so you and your friend can both come up. So Terrence Crawford I'm sick of Terrence Crawford because I'm sick of some of the shit that comes out of his mouth, him and Bomac. I'm just like, guys, come on. The talent is unmistakable, but you're drinking too much of Bob's Kool-Aid. And you're either overpricing yourself, you know, you have the featherweight champion of the world calling you out. And he says, I'll come to 147. No catch weight. I will come to you. You know, there's already reports that Gary Russell broke your jaw. And now, and I've heard that Terrence Crawford ain't no punk. I've heard stories of Terrence Crawford ain't no punk. So and here's the thing about it. I'm not going to, even when I go back to think, I don't think any fighter is afraid to face another fighter because you've been doing it so long. You step in there, blah, blah. I think what happens in the pros is it becomes about business. It's all about business. I don't think, I think that, do I think Canelo's afraid to fight Charlo? No. I think it's about money. Do I think he's afraid to fight Andrade? No. It's about money. No fighter's afraid to face another fighter. A lot of the reason these fights don't take place, not about a fear, but because of money. Money. It's got to be worth my while. High risk, low reward. If I can fight some little Hammernager and get $2 million, and I know I can whoop his ass, why am I going to take $2 million to go in there and fight somebody that's my equal or maybe better than me? Today's fighters don't care about being great. They don't care about greatness. They care about padding their bank account. And now that's not a bad thing. Now, that's not a bad thing because trust me, fighters don't have a pension. Boxers have no pension. They have no pension. They have no health care. They have none of that shit. There's no fund for fighters that when they get old that they can draw upon. Like NFL, those NFL players have a pension. NBA players have a pension. Major League Baseball players have a pension. There's no pension for boxers. So I don't blame them for making all the money they can make. But at the same time, to these fighters that, while you're padding, you're taking care of business, when you're old and you can't, when you're old and you're going to these fights and the other fighters, you're not as revered as Ali was, you're not as revered as Larry Holmes was, you're not as revered as Marvin Hagler or Tommy Hearns or these great guys that fought everybody and anybody, you have no one to blame but yourself because these guys were warriors. Tommy Hearns, the fight with Marvin Hagler, one of the greatest 8 minutes of ever. Hell, Jose Luis Castillo can walk into a fight, people recognize him, and they'll remember him for two things. One is the man that many people felt beat Mayweather, and two, his fight with Diego Corrales. And how we let it all on the line, that first fight with Diego Corrales. Boxing fans remember those warriors that gave us everything in that ring. So to a lot of you fighters out there, when you're done fighting and you go to these events and you're sitting around and people are walking past you and running past you to greet someone else, just remember the reason that's happening is because you didn't do enough with your legacy. And don't think you're the ones, the fighters you're defined by the fights you had and by the fights you ducked. That's why, like I said, regardless of what people feel about Oscar De La Hoya as a person, as a fighter, much love and respect to Oscar. Shit. Oscar ducked no one. Much respect to Oscar De La Hoya. Much. So I have more I wanted to cover, but that's all for now. I'm at the 39-minute mark. So this is Dope. Till next, this is Dope Wilson signing out. Goodbye.